Okay, I'm on Armand Drive today, which is where I live, and this is a street that has 11 houses with grinder pumps. And what I'm doing today is I'm checking the Remote Sentry connections on these houses. Of the people who are home today, I have access to 8 of the grinder pump panels. Of those 8 houses, 4 of them have the Remote Sentry, and 4 of them don't. Here's a house with a Remote Sentry, and this Remote Sentry is wired correctly. If you look up at the top, you'll see there's a labeled terminal that says Remote Sentry, and then there are these 2 small wires. Those are the wires from the Remote Sentry, and then going to the terminals labeled Remote Sentry. This is the Pines house, and this was done correctly. Down at the bottom of the panel, there are 2 other terminals. They're labeled dry contact. Now, those terminals are frequently used by accident to wire the Remote Sentry to. That's what we found out last week at John Byron's house. Okay, I just locked up that panel. Now, I'm going to walk across the street, and living across the street here are the Markhams, and they have a Remote Sentry. And they're not home right now, but I just talked to them a few minutes ago before they left, and I checked their panel, and their panel was wired up exactly the same as John Byron's panel, which is to say it's wired incorrectly. And what that means is, if there's a power out and there's a high alarm condition, even though they have a Remote Sentry, it's not going to make an alarm. Now, this is the panel across the street. That's because at the bottom there's a red and a white wire, the small wire. They're going up to 2 terminals that are labeled dry contact. It's a very common miswiring. Now, at the top of this panel, the terminals labeled Remote Sentry are empty. This is the way John Byron's panel was last week. This is a problem. Now, for about the last 5 years, the sewer commission has included a Remote Sentry along with the grinder pump package. So when you pay $1 for your grinder pump, you actually get the electrical panel and you get the Remote Sentry to put inside your house. But you do have to pay for the installation of the Remote Sentry. But everybody who got a grinder pump within the last 5 years is entitled to a Remote Sentry. But I noticed that only half of them on this street, 4 of the 8 houses that I looked at, have the Remote Sentry. On those 4 houses with the Remote Sentry, 3 of them are wired incorrectly, and 1 of them is wired correctly. Now, that means that of the people with the Remote Sentry, 75% of them will not get an alarm from their Remote Sentry when the power goes out and they have a high-level alarm. Now, these people need to contact their installer and or the electrician who did the wiring on the Remote Sentry so that can be corrected. And they can refer them to this particular YouTube where they can get the correct wiring instruction, and they can also contact E1. They can contact E1 right there, and they can ask them for the correct way to wire the Remote Sentry. Or FR Mahoney will also tell them the correct way to wire the Remote Sentry. The FR Mahoney number might be on the inside of this pump. I noticed it was on my pump, but I'm not sure. It might not be. No, that's just the E1 number. Okay, FR Mahoney though. But anyway, they'll know how to get it. And anyway, that's all for today now.